Lisa, my wife of 37 years, started a new job about 4.5 months ago, and almost immediately, she found herself surrounded by a new group of friends. I'm 36, and from the beginning, something about them didn't sit right with me. They were outspoken feminists, always painting themselves as victims, hyper-focused on every social issue imaginable. The type who would take offense whether you opened a door for them or not. There was simply no winning. At first, I dismissed my discomfort, assuming it was just a phase. But as time went on, the way Lisa acted began to change in ways I couldn't ignore. We've been married for 11 years and have 2 children, our 10-year-old daughter and our 8-year-old son. Out of nowhere, she started throwing bizarre accusations at me, claiming I was inherently evil, simply because men throughout history had oppressed women. It was ridiculous, but I tried my best to stay calm, always responding with, "I haven't done anything wrong, Lisa. My only mistake is loving you." That line usually ended the argument for the moment, but by the next day, she'd find a new reason to start another. Then, about 5 weeks ago, my instinct started screaming that something was seriously off. Lisa would stay out late without offering any explanation. When she did come home, she was distant. This became a pattern. One night, I checked her phone, but most of her messages were gone. It was obvious she had been deleting them. However, in one conversation with her new friends, I found something that confirmed my worst fears. She had mentioned the idea of an open relationship. She brought it up herself on the second Monday of December. With our kids spending Christmas at their grandparents', she casually asked me over breakfast what I thought about open relationships, as if it were just another casual topic. I kept my composure and started asking direct questions. The more serious I became, the less confident she looked. "Who's the guy?" I asked, straight to the point. She played dumb. "What do you mean?" I didn't let her off the hook. "Don't act clueless. If we're going to have an honest discussion, then let's actually be honest. If you can't do that, there's no point in continuing this conversation." She kept trying to stall. "What are you talking about? You're hiding something." "So, who is it?" I pressed. Eventually, she cracked, partially. "I'm not seeing anyone," she lied. "Don't lie to me, Lisa. You've already destroyed my trust. Either be honest, or we're getting a divorce. No arguments, no excuses, just divorce. Do you understand?" After a long pause, she finally admitted it. She confessed to 2 one-night stands with married men and revealed that she had been planning to be with a coworker, insisting it was best for her, and that I had no right to interfere. She even gave me his name and his wife's name, then went as far as suggesting I should try dating one of her friends. Apparently, one of them was interested in me. I ignored that nonsense and asked for her phone. She hesitated, but eventually unlocked it. While she was in the bathroom, I locked myself in my office. She panicked. I used recovery software to retrieve her deleted messages and installed a monitoring app on her phone. When I walked out, I handed her the phone back and told her to leave. She argued, but I refused to engage, keeping my responses to a single word. She showed no remorse, screaming that I was controlling and that I was reinforcing historical oppression. Her friends backed her up, convinced I would never follow through with anything. One of them even bragged about how she had manipulated her ex-husband in a similar way. That was when I decided to install security cameras around the house. I needed proof of what was really happening. Shortly after, she messaged her affair partner, arranging a hotel meetup. That was the final straw. I found his wife on Facebook and told her everything, including the motel plans. She thanked me and hung up. A few hours later, she sent me a video. She had gone to the motel and confronted them. Her husband was caught in the act, and Lisa was on the bed, scrambling to get dressed. The wife was furious, yelling at both of them. At one point, she slapped Lisa, calling her every name in the book. Watching it made me sick. I texted Lisa, telling her I had seen everything and that I never wanted to see her again. I joined her family's WhatsApp group, let them know about our divorce and her infidelity, thanked them for welcoming me into their family, then left the group. Since then, she's been calling and messaging nonstop, but I haven't responded. I'm completely drained. I told my parents everything. My dad sent Lisa a message, making it clear that she was not welcome for Christmas. Now, I'm staying at my parents' house. My boss gave me time off until mid-January, so I can get everything sorted out. I've been keeping an eye on Lisa's chats with her new friends, and they're in a panic. I don't think she's fully grasped that she's lost her family, and those so-called friends won't stand by her. She has bombarded me with messages, even showed up at my parents' house, demanding to celebrate Christmas together. My dad told her to leave and threatened to call the police if she didn't. Now, I'm searching for a divorce lawyer, trying to hold myself together, but the pain is overwhelming. This Christmas has been the worst of my life. I had to sit our kids down and tell them the truth, that their mom didn't want to be part of our family anymore, that she chose to be with other men instead. They were heartbroken. Thank God for my parents. They've been a rock for our kids while I try to pull myself together. I know I have to be strong for them, but I can never go back to Lisa. The level of betrayal and disrespect is beyond anything I can forgive. Looking back, I regret telling the kids so soon. I should have waited until after Christmas, maybe arranged counseling first. What truly broke me wasn't just the betrayal. It was when Lisa outright admitted that our marriage and even our children were nothing but burdens to her. She told me, without hesitation, that we had held her back from achieving success. She even had the audacity to blame me for oppressing her and ruining her life. According to her, because of our family, she missed out on a thriving career and the casual experiences she supposedly deserved. Hearing that was more than I could take. As I replayed everything in my mind, I realized something. She had never actually given me specific examples of how we had supposedly been such a burden to her. Her accusations were always vague, without any real substance. The truth was, I never once held her back from anything. If anything, I supported her at every turn. I covered most of our expenses since her part-time job barely contributed, encouraged her to follow her dreams, and even paid for the classes she wanted to take, only for her to quit halfway through. I always made sure she knew she was loved, took her out, appreciated everything she did for our family. If that's what she calls oppression, then I have no clue what actual support is supposed to look like. But I digress. At some point, I must have passed out from sheer exhaustion. When I woke up, I found my 3 best friends in the kitchen with my dad, making dinner. These guys have been with me since childhood. Let's call them Joseph, Mason, and Derek. My dad must have told them everything. Seeing them there, I broke down all over again and spent the next couple of days in a haze. Joseph, a military vet who lost his left arm below the elbow, was someone we had all rallied around when his wife left him. Thankfully, they didn't have kids, and he eventually adopted 2 children and found an incredible girlfriend. He arranged a Zoom call with his counselor, the same one who had helped him get through his recovery. Even though the counselor specialized in working with amputees, he perfectly understood my mental and emotional state. He explained that so much of my identity had been wrapped up in being a husband, and now that part of me was gone. Just like an amputee who experiences phantom pain, I was feeling the same kind of loss, but for the life I thought I had. Our long conversations have been helping me slowly find a sense of peace. Mason, on the other hand, works as an executive at a security firm, though he's always been secretive about the specifics of his job. Whatever he does, he's done extremely well for himself. He got in touch with a law firm connected to his company, and on Sunday morning, I spoke with a lawyer I could never afford on my own. Mason told me not to worry about the cost. He was covering it. He said it was his way of finally repaying me for standing up for him all those years ago. Derek, a private school teacher with 7 kids of his own, yes, 7, has been helping take care of my children while I try to put my life back together. My kids adore Derek and his family, and knowing they're with people who love them gives me some peace of mind. Yesterday was rough. It started with an early morning STD screening, and the results confirmed what I feared. I had contracted an STI from Lisa. I'll need another screening in 6 months. The moment I got the news, all the self-pity I had been drowning in morphed into pure rage. Now, I'm determined to fight for full custody and make sure she gets nothing if I can help it. My lawyer did some digging and managed to track down the ex-husband of one of Lisa's feminist friends, the same one who had bragged about deceiving him. Through court records, we got in touch, and he shared the absolute nightmare he had endured because of her. Listening to his story made me sick, but it also gave me a clear understanding of what I'm up against with Lisa. He revealed that at one point, he was homeless and hadn't seen his children in 4 years because of her lies. I know that, as a man, I'm already at a disadvantage in family court, so I'm making sure to gather as much evidence as I can. Given Lisa's aggressive views toward men, especially considering how it could affect our son, my lawyer recommended filing for a preemptive restraining order. Growing up with a mother who openly resents men could be incredibly damaging to him, which is why I'm fighting so hard for full custody. I've already told my lawyer to move forward with it, and she expects to serve the order today. Later in the day, I ended up having a Zoom call with Lisa. Since the argument at my dad's house, she hadn't reached out once. Not to me, not to our kids. It's painfully obvious she doesn't care about any of us. When she showed up on the video call, she was dressed in a way I hadn't seen in years, wearing revealing clothes, trying hard to look attractive. Throughout the call, she kept trying to provoke me into an argument, but I followed my lawyer's advice and stayed calm. The lawyer had explained that in court, it always looks better if both parties at least make an attempt to negotiate an amicable divorce before resorting to a contested one. I recorded everything. At one point, I even referred to her as my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she certainly lived up to that title. She started off with some bizarre comment about male anatomy and how it changes over time, completely inappropriate and irrelevant to the conversation. Then she rambled excitedly about how she couldn't wait for restrictions to ease so she could experience it more in person. I cut her off. I have no interest in your personal life. I just want to discuss the divorce. When she saw that I wasn't going to react the way she wanted, her whole demeanor shifted. Her hostility started showing. At one point, she muted herself, claiming she needed to use the bathroom. But I could still see her talking to her friends, complaining about me and cursing me just for being a man. It was like she saw this entire situation as a game where she held all the power, and I had none. We didn't make any progress on the divorce terms. It's clear this is going to be a long, ugly battle. Before ending the call, I dropped one last piece of news. Oh, by the way, I tested positive for chlamydia, I told her. And unlike you, I haven't been with anyone else. You should get checked. She just sat there, stunned. Since the phone plan is in my name, I have legal access to her chat logs, and I plan to use them in court if needed. After the call, I saw her friends frantically messaging, but honestly, I don't care what they're saying anymore. I have bigger things to focus on now. My lawyer feels confident we have a strong case. My focus now is on protecting myself and my kids. I know they'll be okay, and I'll make sure they get any therapy they need to process this. As for my soon-to-be ex-wife, she'll eventually become nothing more than a distant memory. Today, I found out that Lisa had known about the chlamydia infection and got treated for it, without ever telling me. That realization sent a fresh wave of anger through me. Lisa either doesn't realize I can still monitor her messages, or simply doesn't care. She's fully convinced I'll never go through with leaving her, as if my reaction to her betrayal is somehow unjustified. She continues to trash me, our marriage, even our kids, to her friends. I honestly can't wrap my head around why she hates us so much. Nothing she claims about us is true. That said, my lawyer did manage to secure a temporary restraining order against her. However, we had a hearing yesterday morning, and since there were no new direct threats, the judge didn't extend it. Now, my lawyer is looking into using the fact that Lisa knowingly infected me with chlamydia as leverage for an uncontested divorce. I wish this could all just end peacefully. I hate the fact that I have to see her as an adversary, constantly preparing for the worst. If she had simply wanted out of the marriage, I could have accepted that. But why is she determined to make this as painful as possible for the people who once loved her? If this ends up in court, I might have to pay her a lump sum for her share of the house's equity, but since she's shown no interest in the kids, I probably won't have to pay alimony. I'm feeling hopeful about getting full custody if it goes to trial. For now, we're attempting an amicable divorce, and I agreed to meet with her soon, along with her representative. Over New Year's, I invited the ex-husband of Lisa's feminist friend, the one who bragged about deceiving him, to spend the holiday with me and the kids. Hearing about his experience in the family court system completely shattered any illusions I had about fairness. His ex fabricated lies against him with zero evidence, and the court still took her side. He's barely seen his children in years, and the crushing financial burden of alimony and child support nearly drove him to end his life. The evidence I provided him gave him renewed hope. After discussing it with my lawyer, We decided he should hold off on using it until after my upcoming meeting with Lisa and her counsel. If we reveal our access to their messages too soon, it could hurt both of our cases. My lawyer's priority is to settle this quickly and cleanly so I can finally be free. The meeting with my lawyer and Lisa happened yesterday afternoon. She arrived 30 minutes late, and to my surprise, she didn't bring a lawyer. Instead, she brought one of her new friends and claimed she didn't need legal representation. Beforehand, my lawyer had coached me on how to handle the meeting. I needed to stay calm, avoid reacting negatively, and keep my responses neutral or positive when possible. If things escalated, my lawyer would place her hands flat on the table. That would be my cue to stay silent. Lisa and her friend walked in late, immediately throwing out insults, openly mocking me in an attempt to provoke a reaction. My lawyer kept steering the conversation back to the divorce, but they ignored her, cracking jokes at my expense and laughing like the whole situation was one big joke. It was humiliating. She genuinely believed I would never go through with divorcing her. In her mind, only she had the power to decide when things ended and on what terms. The arrogance was mind-blowing. I refused to engage. Instead, I responded with vague, dismissive phrases like, "Yes, you're probably right," or "I don't know." I kept myself as neutral as possible. Eventually, when their energy burned out, my lawyer presented the proposed settlement for an amicable divorce. She made it clear that I was willing to be generous to resolve things quickly and peacefully. This included a sizable payout for Lisa's share of the house and other assets. Lisa's entire attitude shifted the second money was mentioned. Her friend immediately encouraged her to accept. They were eager to sign the agreement right then and there. My lawyer suggested reviewing the full terms before rushing into anything, but Lisa insisted on signing immediately. She was already making plans, chatting about what she would do with the money, even talking about celebrating at a pub. We called in a notary, who verified our IDs, and we signed 2 copies of the agreement. As they were leaving, Lisa and her friend completely forgot to take her copy of the agreement. My lawyer subtly gestured for me to be quiet until they were out of the building. Once they had driven off, my lawyer smiled and congratulated me. She said it was one of the most bizarre divorce sessions she'd ever witnessed. Lisa's signed copy of the agreement is now locked in my lawyer's office. It will stay there until we have our court hearing, or if she hires a lawyer who requests it. If she tries to contest it later, she can still bring in legal representation, but my lawyer is already working to expedite a hearing with a judge, likely via video call. To cover all my bases, I also hired a private investigator. He gathered evidence, photos of Lisa with 2 different men at bars, even checking into a hotel with one. I now have solid proof of her behavior. If this turns into a legal battle, I'll be ready. Lisa also signed over full custody to me, with a single payout and no requirement for spousal support. The only thing left is finalizing the finances, and Mason has generously offered to cover the amount if needed. My lawyer advised me to keep things as quiet as possible, continue covering expenses as usual, and avoid discussing the situation with anyone we both know. Patience is key until the hearing is finalized. The hearing took place yesterday, and for all practical purposes, I'm now divorced. The official paperwork will take another 4 to 6 months. I'm completely drained. I haven't slept in days. My lawyer, who is nothing short of incredible, somehow managed to secure a hearing just 12 days after filing, likely pulling some strings. On Friday morning, a group of police officers showed up at my door with a search warrant for my house. I was stunned. My first thought was for the kids, so I asked if I could take them outside while the officers searched, and thankfully, they agreed. They wouldn't tell me much, but I managed to get a copy of the warrant. I was completely shaken, unable to process what was happening. It turns out, suspicions about Lisa's behavior being influenced by medication were at least somewhat correct. The police tore through my house, leaving it in complete disarray. I immediately called my lawyer, who spoke with the officers, but since they had a valid warrant, there was nothing she could do to stop it. I had no idea at the time, but Lisa and 3 of her friends had taken my car while drunk and crashed it into a house at high speed. All 4 of them were arrested. Not only were they intoxicated, but they also had various medications on them and in their systems. The crash left them all injured. One of the passengers is in critical condition, and it's unclear if she'll survive. The woman driving, the same friend of Lisa's who had previously boasted about deceiving her ex-husband, Mark, has actually become an unexpected ally to me, but I'll get to that later. Thankfully, the police found nothing incriminating in my home. I provided a statement explaining that Lisa no longer lived with me and was staying at her parents' house. I also made it clear that I never gave her friend permission to use my car. When I finally returned home after the search, I completely broke down. The house was a disaster. The only thought in my mind was to call my dad. He came over immediately and took me and the kids to stay with my mom. Then, something incredible happened. My dad gathered a group of 26 friends and family members, and they came together to restore my home. They deep-cleaned every room, repaired anything that needed fixing, replaced broken items, and put everything back in order. They even took care of small details, like tightening loose door handles. By the time they were done, my house was cleaner and more put together than it had ever been. I sat on the back porch, emotionally drained, while my mom made sure I ate and had support. The kindness they showed me was overwhelming. I don't know how I'll ever be able to repay them. Meanwhile, the police uncovered more illegal substances at Emma's house, where her boyfriend was nowhere to be found, and their kids had been left alone. Child Protective Services immediately got involved, and by Saturday, Mark had secured emergency custody of his children. Thanks to the solid evidence we had, from chat logs to photos, he had a strong case, making it relatively straightforward for him to win temporary custody. Mark was overjoyed. After years of barely seeing his kids and struggling to save enough for a legal battle, he finally has a real shot at making the custody arrangement permanent. There's still a court process ahead, but at least for now, his children are safe. If the friend in critical condition doesn't survive, Emma could be facing serious prison time. Mason has been an incredible support throughout this ordeal, even helping Mark find a rental apartment through one of his contacts. It made me realize how little I actually know about Mason's personal life, but that's something I plan to change once all of this is over. As it turns out, Emma was the one behind the wheel when they crashed into the house, which led to search warrants being issued for everyone involved. Because Lisa is still legally registered at my address, I made a decision on Sunday. I need to sell the house and move as soon as possible. I can't risk another situation like this happening. Lisa's parents called me last Sunday, sounding completely shaken. They told me their home had also been searched. The day before, they had visited Lisa in jail, and they no longer believed a word she had been telling them. They came over for a serious conversation that evening. It was obvious they had just learned the harsh truth. Lisa had lied to them about everything. She had claimed she was staying with me, trying to work things out, when, in reality, she had been out partying and cheating. Her parents had believed it was a one-time mistake, until now. Then, on Monday, Lisa called me. She wanted bail money, $155,000. Her parents had already refused to help her, so she turned to me. I consulted my lawyer, who drafted an agreement stating that if I paid the bail, the amount would be deducted from the final divorce settlement. Lisa's mother agreed to manage the remaining funds, ensuring Lisa didn't waste them. My lawyer wanted to make sure Lisa had no excuse to miss her upcoming court hearing, so we set clear conditions for her release. She had no choice but to sign. Lisa was released from jail on Monday afternoon. Her parents laid down strict conditions if she wanted to stay with them. She had to stop taking all unprescribed medications. She had to agree to rehab. She had to be fully transparent about her activities. She had to cut ties with her toxic influences. Whether or not she actually follows through is anyone's guess. By Tuesday, Lisa had already left her parents' house to stay with her new friends and ended up missing her court date. Because of that, I was granted full custody. The divorce settlement was finalized in just 30 minutes based on our prior agreement. While it'll still take a few more months for all the paperwork to be officially processed, the decision is now locked in. Fast forward to today, and I still can't sleep. People keep congratulating me like I've won some kind of battle, but it doesn't feel like a victory. I still have lingering feelings for Lisa, even though I know our relationship is beyond repair. She was my best friend, my soulmate, or at least, that's what I believed until all of this happened. My feelings for her haven't just vanished, and that only makes the pain worse. There are no winners here. I lose, Lisa loses, and worst of all, my kids lose. I can't even begin to describe how it feels. Like people expect me to celebrate after losing both my legs. They think I've saved part of a limb, but the truth is, I've lost everything. Sleep barely comes, and when it does, it's filled with nightmares that leave me drenched in sweat. I got a call from the hospital. Lisa had been admitted. Since I'm still listed as her emergency contact, they reached out to me. She's also still covered under my health insurance. Lisa was in a serious incident that left her with multiple injuries, a few missing teeth, a broken jaw, and the doctor's plan to keep her under observation for several days. I took her parents to see her, and we learned that her new friends had brutally beaten her. Apparently, they suspected she had leaked chat logs to a man named Mark, exposing them, and in retaliation, they attacked her. What they don't realize is that Lisa still has no idea I've been able to monitor her phone in real time. For now, I'll continue supporting her financially until the divorce is finalized, but I won't truly believe this is over until I have the final paperwork in hand. She even asked if she could move back in, but I made it clear that wasn't an option. Her mother is just as firm. She refuses to offer financial help unless Lisa stays clean for at least a year. Her parents have given her a place to stay, but only under strict conditions. If she doesn't accept their help, I honestly don't know how she'll survive. For the first time since this nightmare began, I sensed a flicker of regret in her. But whether it's genuine or just a reaction to hitting rock bottom, I don't know. She didn't ask a single question about the court hearing or even about her injured friend's condition. She seemed detached, almost irritated, like she was more bothered by the situation than remorseful for what led her there. I still can't fully grasp how she ended up like this. She's lost everything, shattered our family, and caused so much pain, all for the sake of fleeting excitement and shallow connections. Honestly, I'm exhausted and feeling more than a little depressed. But on a positive note, the kids are doing better. My dad has been an enormous help. I don't know how I would have managed without him. This weekend, we took a trip to his cabin and went skiing, which was exactly the break we needed. I've kept contact with Lisa to a minimum, but I did speak with her friend, the one who had been in critical condition. She's awake now, though still in rough shape. Her nurse told me that no one had visited her, not even her own family. They refused when the hospital reached out. Concerned that the same people who attacked Lisa might come after me or the kids, I asked if I could speak to her, and the nurse allowed it. At first, the conversation was awkward. She assumed I was there to ask for a favor and immediately requested $120. Instead, I offered her $150 in exchange for answers. That's when she told me everything. Lisa's new friends were deep into psychoactive drugs. Emma was the one who introduced Lisa to that lifestyle. Under Emma's influence, Lisa began using illegal substances, spending more time with their crowd, and eventually getting involved with men to help fund their addiction. Emma, who had always pretended to be some kind of feminist advocate, was actually using that image as a cover to protect her ego and manipulate others. Hearing that broke me. The woman I once loved had spiraled into something I never could have imagined. Suddenly, it made sense why money had become such a focus for her. Her friend explained that Lisa mainly used pills, but she had burned so many bridges that she was completely isolated. She had stolen from and mistreated almost everyone in her life until no one was left to help her. Emma, however, is facing serious legal repercussions. She's been charged with multiple offenses and was denied bail due to being a flight risk. It looks like she'll be dealing with the legal system for a long time. Many of my acquaintances warned me that Lisa might attempt to take her own life. Unfortunately, they were right. She attempted an overdose. Her father and I had already discussed the possibility, so we had been keeping a close watch. Thankfully, she still doesn't know I can track her phone in real time. While we were at the cabin on Saturday, I received a message from her. It read like a suicide note. She talked about her addiction, feeling like a failure, and believing there was no way out. I called her father immediately. Using location tracking, he found her unconscious on a park bench, suffering from severe hypothermia. She's now on medication, and her father has been appointed as her legal guardian, meaning she can no longer refuse treatment. Because of her overdose, her history of abandoning her children, and her increasingly erratic and suicidal behavior, he had her forcibly admitted to a rehab center. She'll be undergoing a sedated detox this week. Thankfully, I hadn't yet canceled her life insurance, so she'll receive the treatment she desperately needs. I've been on edge, worried that the men who attacked Lisa might try to come after me or the kids. Since Mark used those chat logs in court, they assumed Lisa had been the one who leaked them. I talked to Mark about it, and since he was the one who benefited from the information, he agreed to take care of the situation. Mark is a big guy, and he wasted no time. He went straight to their apartment, which was in complete disarray, and confronted them. He made it clear that Emma had been the one to leak the chat logs, not Lisa. Then, he gave them two choices. Either turn themselves into the police or deal with immediate and painful consequences. They didn't hesitate for long. Within hours, they went to the police, and now I no longer have to worry about them. Meanwhile, I found a new apartment and will be moving soon, thanks to Mason's continued support. Despite all that's happened, I don't regret marrying Lisa. And without her, I wouldn't have my children. Mark and his kids are staying over tonight, and we're planning to watch a movie together. I'm doing my best to create as many positive memories as I can, and Mark is doing the same. The kids are adjusting, and for the first time in a long while, I truly believe we're all going to be okay. But then, the worst happened. Lisa passed away from an overdose while in rehab. Addiction is a vicious battle, and this entire experience has been devastating. If there's anything I've learned from all of this, it's that no matter how dark things seem, you need to reach out. Lean on your family, focus on your children, and hold on, even when it feels impossible. Things will get better.